Senate Democrats taking their turn to bash the GSA, holding their own hearing on the government spending nearly $1 million on a Vegas vacation. This is Congress's third panel on the scandal in 3 days. So far, we've heard about waste, bribery, kickbacks, and theft. How much longer before the guilty are behind bars? Joining me now, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Great to have you back on the show.
Good to be with you, my friend.
All right, so is somebody going to go to the jail on this?
Well, in order for that to happen, the government has to decide to prosecute. So the president's attorney general has to prosecute an appointee of the president for doing nefarious behavior about which somebody in the White House, according to Congressman Micah, probably knew before, during, and after it was done. I mean, stated differently, this stuff has been going on for a long time. Congressman Micah says the White House knew about it for a year.
Let's listen to some sound on that, because Micah said it on FNC earlier today. Here's how he put it.
The conference took place in October of 2010. And then the whistleblower asked for the IG investigation a month later. It was reported back in May of 2011 that what was going on, and that was enough time to investigate. And then the White House was briefed the beginning of June.
So is the president covering up here? What's going on?
Well, I think the president has a hot political potato in his hands. What we thought 2 weeks ago was a bunch of federal workers clowning around and letting loose in a non-criminal, although ridiculous way, but it's Las Vegas, what the heck, now appears as though it was the inappropriate use of government funds, actually theft of government funds, to provide great luxuries to people who weren't entitled to them. It appears, no one's been charged, it appears the head of the GSA flew to Honolulu for a 45-minute ribbon cutting in front of the new federal building.
There he is, right there.
Stayed there for 3 weeks, for 17 days with his wife at the government's expense.
Is that illegal? Is that criminal?
Yes, it is illegal, and yes, it is criminal. And the level of the charge depends upon how much money was taken from the government and conferred upon himself and his wife. But a general rule of thumb for something like this is somewhere between 5 and 10 years if a trip like this probably cost about $5,000 or $10,000 and obviously was not authorized. He authorized it himself, but he didn't have the power to do that for himself.
They call it the Matrix, right? Because the way this whole agency is organized, Byzantine, he actually, he reported to 2 different bosses, very confusing how things were laid out.
And this is the agency whose job it is to conserve federal assets. If you're a judge in a federal courthouse and the window breaks or the sink doesn't work, you call the GSA. They own the building, they maintain the building, they manage the building.
It's unbelievable.
And they have the cash with which to do so. They're supposed to spend it properly.
All right, so a fun part of this that I know you may or may not be familiar with, the idea of the commemorative coin. So apparently at the GSA, you couldn't feed people at an event unless you gave them these awards, these coins. Take a look at these numbers. The commemorative coins cost about $6,000 to make, but the events cost $31,000.
Obviously, this is extravagance. Extravagance is bad judgment. Taking yourself and your wife on a 17-day vacation at the government expense in order to perform a 45 minutes worth of duty is criminal.
All right.
Arguably. Listen, we don't know all the facts yet, but on the basis of what we know, it certainly appears there's enough with which to charge him and others for the misuse of taxpayer funds.
I want to get you to respond to something Brian Miller had to say. Some stuff was just looted, Judge. Listen to this.
We found that there were about 115 iPods missing. Apple provided us with some of the addresses where iTunes were being downloaded. And one of the iPods was located in Mr. Neely's personal possession. The subpoena from Apple told us that his daughter had been downloading iTunes.
So this was stuff that was supposed to be an award to GSA employees. Stuff was taken, in fact, obviously by Neely, according to what Miller says here. Come on, that's illegal, right?
The break point in the federal law is $1,000. If what was taken in goods and services exceeded 1,000, it's an indictment, it's a felony, you're talking 5 or 10 years. If it was under 1,000, you're talking a slap on the wrist, probably no jail time, but certainly termination from his job and perhaps loss of his pension benefits. This has all the earmarks of being significantly north of 1,000.
Well, I got to tell you, half of the people that are talking in front of these committees testifying, they're all on administrative leave. Most of them are not even working right now. It's going to be interesting to see how this turns out.
Yes,
Judge.
and they'll quite properly assert their Fifth Amendment rights not to answer, which means they're not going to tell their bosses what they did, but they have that right under the Constitution.
We're the bosses.
Yes.
We are the bosses.
Yes.
They ought to talk to us.
They forget that they work for us. We don't work for them.